In 3, 2, 1.
I'm a heart that breaks for a dying city.
Stop cursing your future. Is not true.
For all intents and purposes, I am
Crank it up! Crank it up! No political system has ultimate supremacy. Jesus is King of Kings, and it's about time our nation returned in humble submission to his lordship.
You are not protecting women. You are authorizing the destruction of 500,000 little women every year.
But I didn't start it. But sir, with all due respect, that's the argument of a 5-year-old.
I didn't start it.
Right, when the Spirit comes upon people, they go to war. They go to battle, and the enemies of God are driven back, and they're slaughtered.
You are listening to Cross Politic with Gabe Wrench, the Water Boy, Pastor Toby Sumter, and the Chocolate Knox.
Hey, y'all, welcome to Cross Politic Live, coming at you from Battleground, Washington. Good to be with you.
Okay, they're live out there.
There we go. This is Pastor Toby right here. This is Chocolate Knox giving the black church where he dies, and he's got about 2 years left.
I believe in resurrection, though.
All right.
I believe in resurrection.
I'm Gabe, the Water Boy, and we're also glad to be joined with Joe running for House, right, and Ray running for Sheriff. Here we go. So, like probably a number of you, when 2020 hit, we're all kind of thrown off guard just a little bit, some a lot. Some were surprised by our local officials, some were not surprised by our local officials, some were surprised by our political response, our local officials' response. And one of the things that we've been kind of talked a lot about over this last year is not forgetting what happened in 2020. The way we look at it is 2020 actually wasn't, but I'm going to say it this way to help illustrate. 2020 was kind of a crime scene. And if you don't throw down at the first crime scene, the second crime scene is always worse.
That's right.
Right? And
so when they're asking you to get in the van, that's when you want to fight, not when you get to wherever the place is that they're taking you.
Not when you get out to the desert. You don't start fighting out there, right?
When they're trying to drag you into the van.
Yeah. And the reality is there's actually probably 2, 3, 4, 5 crime scenes that happened before 2020 to got what we got in 2020. So we don't want to forget what happened in 2020 because we also want to know what we need to be doing, what we need to be fighting to be able to kind of reclaim the liberties that were taken away from us, our civic liberties, our medical liberties, our kind of the whole society of what just happened.
Our breathing liberties.
Our what?
Breathing liberties.
Our breathing liberties and so forth. And a lot of what kind of got us to this point, which I don't think we want to have this, we don't want to have this debate. I don't think we want to. We have a lot of milquetoast Republicans in our Republican Party. Some call, from rhinos to just kind of soft guys who are good guys. They're good guys, but they're soft. And so we're kind of, in some sense, we're in this situation. We're in Idaho. We're based out of Idaho. I think we had one of the worst governors in the union deal with COVID in Idaho. I mean, he shut down churches until me and a bunch of guys sued him. And he opened up churches. He took that restriction away. But he was just as bad as Governor Cuomo on a lot of levels, except he didn't really send as many people back to the old homes as Governor Cuomo did. Now, pardon me. Yeah, and part of what has happened in all this is we've had a failure to kind of ground our political policies in truth. A lot of our political policies, our legislation, our laws, they're being grounded in kind of how we feel or what we think or some of our sympathies towards the homeless. We aren't grounding our policies in truth, and of course, we want to ground those policies as Christians in the basis of what the Bible says. The Bible is the perfect law of God, and so we want all our societal laws to reflect the perfect law of God. I mean, do we want secular law or God's law? What better law is there to go to base our laws off of?
You sound like a Christian nationalist.
Oh, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. I would prefer Christian nationalism over secular nationalism, right? And then our politicians have not done a good job educating us, bringing us into what's going on. They don't want to report to us. Our legislators locally in our county, we vote them in, and then I don't hear from them for 2 years. So they stop posting, literally they stop posting on social media. During campaign season, you'll see them post on social media, and then they go down to the legislative session in Boise, and they go silent. So our politicians are not communicating to us. They're not a good feedback loop for us. And so, and then lastly in all this, our politicians reflect who we are as a people. That's our scorecard. Joe's our scorecard. Ray's our scorecard. Are they? Yep. I hope they're a good scorecard, right? We hope they're a good scorecard. We hope that they send them off and they do a good job for us and they score high. But what we see in Biden and Trump and George Bush and Obama, that's our scorecard. What you guys see in Inslee, that's the baseline of where Washington's at. You got incompetent Inslee, which means you got incompetent people here in Washington. Okay, Idaho.
They invited us here, Gabe.
I know.
And you just...
There's a back door, right? Just looking for the back door.
I got a bodyguard to get me out of here. We're in Idaho. Brad Little, that's our scorecard for who we are as a people. And we have to change who we are as a people.
That's not a compliment.
I know. That's what I was comparing him to incompetent Inslee.
I just want you to be more winsome, Gabe. Can you be more winsome?
So, sorry. So as we kind of as a show over the years, we've learned. It's not like we've just kind of saw this coming, 7 years ago when our show started. We've grown in our understanding of the Scripture. We've grown in our understanding of politics. We've had to grow. And as a citizenry, if we don't grow, our politicians, we're going to keep getting that failing scorecard with our politicians, that F, that D that we have. And so we need to be challenging ourselves. So that's why we do these shows, and that's why even though we like Ray, I like his constitutional platform, I like Joe, he was endorsed by Trump, I like some of the things that I've seen, but we still got to have hard conversations in-house, because if we don't have hard conversations in-house, we aren't going to grow as a Republican Party, as a conservative party at all. And so that's what this is about. So we wanted to kind of start with, there's been a lot of noise around Christian nationalism. And so I'll start with you, Joe, and then we'll go to Ray. Are you a Christian nationalist, and what does that mean to you?
I'm ready now. So I'm an American nationalist. So my job as a U.S. politician is to fight for every single American, no matter what God they pray to, what denomination of Christianity they are, or if they choose to pray to no God whatsoever. I believe the foundation of our country is Judeo-Christian. It's our Judeo-Christian roots. We can't deny that. I think even if you're of a secular mind, you know what the foundation of our country is. Our divinely inspired documents, the Constitution, those men were Christian that wrote that. However, our country right now, the bedrock of our country has to be having elected officials that are fighting for every single American, regardless of their race, their creed, their religion. So I'm an American nationalist.
American nationalist.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there on that one. Ray.
That's a really simple question for me. The most important thing to me is God and Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I am a Christian and have been for 30 years. You added nationalist to it. To me, I believe very strongly that because of our country, then our Judeo-Christian heritage, it is absolutely essential that allows the freedom for other people and other religions to operate. It wouldn't happen in any other country. Look at in Saudi Arabia. Can you have Christianity over there? Absolutely not. Can you have Christianity in many places? No. But here, thanks to our Judeo-Christian values, we can allow other religions because we know of the strength of the Christian religion. So if you can come to me directly, I'm a man of God and I'm a Christian man first. And I believe that it's a part of our national heritage. So if that's what you mean by Christian heritage, then you got one.
Oh, well, there we go. Joe, you said you're an American nationalist, and you said because of that, you say that primarily because you're wanting to serve all Americans, which makes sense, is good. But, of course, it's not as easy as that because not all Americans' values are compatible. You've got Muslim Americans, you got Hindu Americans, you got atheist Americans, you got secular Americans, you got
drag kid
drag
Americans.
queen Americans. How do you adjudicate that when they say no? But my deeply held belief is that I need to sexualize young children to join me in my LGBT identity. How are you going to tell those Americans they can't do what their deeply held beliefs hold them to?
because those deeply held beliefs infringe on innocent life, for one, if we're talking about abortion. They infringe upon children if we're talking about this groomer ideology. So the second that your beliefs are shoved down someone's throat, that's un-American. So me being an American nationalist, adhering to our Constitution, defending our Constitution, I respect people as long as they are not harming other folks. But everything about what the left is pushing right now on the social side through the cultural wars, this isn't a difference of opinion. This is eradicating the unborn. This is sexualizing children. This is grooming children. And in many cases, this is mutilating children. So there's right versus wrong. I think our very primitive brains understand this. When someone says they want to sexualize children, regardless of how much nonsense you've heard from woke TV, you know that's wrong. And so I think really the Constitution is very, very clear that you have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But the second you infringe upon other people's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, that's where we need to protect our own.
Now, you can clap. Yeah. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. But they're going to say, they're saying, no, you're infringing on our rights by telling, a woman what she can do with her body. You're infringing on our rights. By
telling what drag shows our kids can go to or not.
Yeah, I mean, don't parental rights matter? It's those parents that are bringing their kids to these shows. Aren't you shoving your values down their throats?
No, we're protecting innocent kids. I mean, I think it's pretty basic. These people, they know they're wrong. They just have control of the media, and they're trying to drown us in that. I mean, if you're a heterosexual, you can't take your son to a strip club, a heterosexual strip club, when he turns 15 because you think it's going to be fun. The Child Protective Services are going to be called on you for that. However, nowadays in our society, if you want to take your kid to, Drag Queen Story Hour or some bar where they're having brunch and there's drag queens there, somehow that's accepted. There's standards of morality that we have, and by and large, it's to protect innocent life. And the same thing with abortion. They say, oh, you're trying to control a woman's body. No, I'm trying to, like in your intro, no, I'm trying to make sure that the unborn woman inside of that woman isn't killed. I mean, it's pretty basic. And so I'm happy to have these discussions and these arguments with them. They are much more militant in shoving this down our throats than we are their throats. We're willing to have discussions. They're trying to rule by complete and total suppression.
Ray, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, because I understand what you mean, we're shoving this down their throats. The nice thing about our Constitution is it protects everybody. And I mean everybody. Thank goodness it's Judeo-Christian based, and without it being Judeo-Christian based, we probably couldn't sustain living up to our Constitution. But the Constitution protects the Jew, the Muslim, and the Christian. It also protects the unborn. It protects the blacks, it protects the whites, and it's not based on what the majority thinks. No. It's based on individual rights. And that's why our Constitution is so much better than anything in the world. That's why we can have other religions. That's why we can tolerate other religions. If something comes up that it ends up damaging or attacking our children, then we need to stop it. If the Constitution, if the Bill of Rights is not right for everybody, then we could add another one if we wished. But the important thing is that our Constitution protects all of us equally, regardless of whether you're religion or not. And thank God we have a Judeo-Christian basis.
Mm-hmm. I want to push this just into the weeds a little further. Matt Walsh, I'm sure you followed him, especially recently on his kind of investigative journalism of Vanderbilt and all that stuff. Matt tweeted out after he released some of these videos on Vanderbilt's medical facilities and so forth. He tweeted this out, and he said, "Hi, Republican 2022 candidates." He's talking to you. "We have gone ahead and made gender ideology, child mutilation, and child sexual indoctrination major national issues. They're also winning political issues. All you have to do is take the reins we're trying to hand you." Do you agree with Matt on that?
100%. I agree with it. And it's especially relevant here in the state of Washington. So the entire groomer ideology is being pushed by Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood runs the sex ed curriculum here in Washington state. And we also have something very dangerous here in Washington state, the mature minor status, which means someone who's about 14 years old, the school can give them some form of a medical treatment without telling the parents. So we have that on, that is what every parent who sends their kid to public schools in the state of Washington has to deal with. So I agree. I talk about this all the time. them in the stump. This has nothing to do with being tolerant. This is a very radical ideology that's trying to sexualize children and remove children away from the parents. And why are they trying to move children away from the parents? Because if you can break up families, you can get total control of society. So I couldn't agree more.
Ray, are there, one of the things we're kind of looking into in our state and state of Idaho, are there like some sort of like obscenity laws or that are on the books that can already regulate kind of the current trans push, not just on kids drag shows, but kind of even just the current trans push? And you as sheriff, could you deal with them, arrest or lawfully be able to prosecute, or whatever your role as a sheriff in all this?
We do have those laws, exposure laws, indecent liberties. All of those things are laws that we have on the books right now that can be prosecuted, and we can arrest on those things. And those things, and we need to get back to where we used to arrest people for wandering around naked and showing and doing sexual acts. Now we have parades where they're allowed to do it, and they're not being arrested. They're only being encouraged.
Do they have that here in Vancouver?
That has happened. Unfortunately, it has. Has it have any arrests?
Were you a deputy when it happened?
I'm not a deputy. I'm a police officer.
Okay. Were you a police officer when it happened?
Yes, but were we allowed to do anything at that time?
Were you legally?
As an officer, yes, I was an officer. Could we? Yes. Did we? No. And that's what's important, because right now some of these laws that we have are not being enforced. Can we get them prosecuted is some of the issues. Right. Can we prosecute these crimes? If we arrest, and the sheriff's office arrests for these indecent exposure, the coming before our children with sexual acts, and we arrest for it, will the prosecuting attorney then go ahead and prosecute those cases? Right now, there's a doubt in my mind, and I won't
even
try
in
to play around.
Clark County, conservative Clark County.
Yes, I'm worried about that. Will they be prosecuted? And right now, we don't have any test cases. We'll find out after I'm elected. Sure.
Okay, all right. I want to know, what does it look like to take the reins? That Matt Walsh is saying, hey, we've got people stirred up, people are ready to move and to go somewhere. When you get into Congress, what does it look like to take the reins that Matt's created for you and to push this further down the road?
So first thing that we got to do, and I'm glad you asked that question, what I really want to point out too is that this radical groomer ideology that I just talked about, we've been discussing, it's not some fringe part of the Democrat Party. It doesn't exist with just some weirdos on TikTok. That's what you'd probably think if you were just casually observing it. This is the policy of the Democrat Party. I'm running against a woman named Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez. She's the endorsed Democrat in the race. This is a conservative district, so she's trying to present herself as a old blue dog Democrat. She's a moderate Democrat, but when she's asked point blank, how do you feel about gender-affirming care, which is what they call this, gender-affirming care for minors, she fully supports it, lock, stock, and barrel with Planned Parenthood. So what we have to point out to people, regardless of what these Democrats say, Democrats get in lockstep. Republicans, we have brutal knife fights. We have a wide variety. We have a wide variety of different flavor of Republicans, and we lay out all of our dirty laundry all the time. Good, bad, and ugly. We do that. The Democrats do not. The Democrats are a military unit. They get in line. And so the policy of the Democrat Party right now is to fully embrace this radical groomer ideology. So the first thing we've got to do is expose that, not back down on it. When we get into Congress, there's a couple different action items we have. Now, number one, I will sign on to Marjorie Taylor Greene's law that will prosecute doctors that mutilate children.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Now, will Joe Biden sign off on that? So I'll give Marjorie Taylor Greene support. I'll encourage other Republicans too. It's more than likely going to die before it even, if hopefully we take the Senate, hopefully it gets out of the Senate, it would die on the president's desk. We know that, but we have the power of the purse strings. Once we get control of Congress, we can start defunding a lot of these different organizations. Planned Parenthood is number one on our list, and the Supreme Court has our back on this.
That's good. So you're a sheriff. This is like, we just got to talk a little bit about this. What is it like for you to take the reins at this point?
I think what we need to do right now as our sheriff, because right now we've got laws here in Washington State that have been absolutely just deleterious to officers trying to do their job. Our officers right now are held back from actually getting out there and protecting you. I've said this before, that many of you out there, that right now you are not safe here in Clark County. You're not safe in Clark County because of what these laws have been passed. Right now, the laws we have so many, I call them the dirty dozen, that right now we can't even pursue a criminal that steals a car. Can I give you a quick example?
Yeah, please.
I want to hear it.
All right, so this great officer that I know was...
We'll call him Ray Ray.
Yeah, let's call him. Let's just say. Let's call him Ray Ray.
Ray. I like this.
Anyways, we pull up. We're behind a vehicle. It's like a green Subaru. No plates on it. Pull up behind that vehicle. All right. Pulls into a store close to here, and as it stops, the subject then gets out. Subject means that's police talk for a guy. Gets out of the car. Looks at that great officer who's behind him, pulling him over for no plates, and then quickly decides to get back in the car. After we tell him not to get back in the car, and I tell him because he's starting to do all kinds of crazy things, he gets back in the car, and guess what he does? He throws it into gear, rams my patrol car, moves forward, hits another vehicle, then backs up and rams my patrol car again, and then takes off. Guess what I did?
You couldn't do anything.
Nothing.
But that's because you made him afraid. You're scared the man.
I stayed there.
He wouldn't have did that if he wasn't afraid.
Unfortunately, I wish that was the thing. No, this is the laws right now. Many of these laws that have been passed.
You're not allowed to pursue
You
him?
are not allowed to pursue.
Why?
Because that would be bad.
Inslee passed
the law.
It's dirty 12.
It's mean.
He's dirty dozen.
It's mean.
Well, right now, because they don't want us to pursue these criminals, it's because, well, other people, you know, it's bad. It might make the criminal upset that you pursue him, and then it might cause him to crash. And there are some value in pursuits that should be limited. Right. But that should be the decision of the administrating officers that are looking at this pursuit when it starts. The fact that this guy then got away after ramming a patrol car is unacceptable. And now it's been happening more and more and more
because they know
in the state of Washington. Yeah. We have emboldened criminals with these new and outrageous laws.
So, you know, I'm glad that, you know, as we're talking, you guys are seeing some of these problems. You know, kids, drag shows. You know, I think one of the most recent egregious examples was the teacher up in Canada wearing massive prosthetic breasts and going and teaching his students in shop class or something. And all these parents are finally getting outraged and going to protest. And I'm like, okay, that's great that they see that that's a problem. But what were all the problems before that they should have been seeing to get to this point? It's like well, I'm glad you guys see massive...
I am really happy they noticed.
Yeah.
The large prosthetic breasts.
On a man.
Good. Yeah. Right. Good job. There's something wrong here. But how did we get here? Like people don't do this just overnight. Somebody doesn't just one day wake up and, you know, walk in there with this set of prosthetic breasts. Yeah. And what in the world? I mean, there's been sex ed education going on. Evolution's been taught in the schools for a century. Yeah. I mean,
and no one's thrown down about that.
I mean, what they're teaching kids that their lives are meaningless. Everything's an accident. Might makes right. The strong survive. There is no God.
And we wonder why there's school shootings.
Right.
That no one means anything to each other in public school.
And that is exactly why we have to have more parental control, especially here in Clark County, but most importantly in Washington State as a whole, and nationwide, really. And right now, a lot of our, what we call them mama bears in this area, are not allowed to say, hey, enough is enough. We go to those places, but yet we say, no, you're not going to be able to protest. You're not going to be allowed there. No, it's simple, and it should be simple and without even a doubt. Every parent should have the right to decide what is taught to their child, where, especially since you're paying the bill.
Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead and clap for that. So, Joe, I want to hear from you. Like, okay, you get the prosthetic boob thing. Good. I'm glad. What? What? Do you? What, 20 years ago, what should have you been seeing to be able to start, saying, hey, you need to be jumping down on this issue, 2020, let's say 2000. What should have you been jumping down, up and down on to be able to prevent, where we're at now?
I think our culture has been dying for quite some time. I mean, look, I think for those of us that are Republicans, that are Christians, we've kind of had our nose to the grindstone. We've worried about our families, our businesses, our churches, and we haven't been looking at the broader culture. When we see something that we didn't like from the broader culture, we just insulated and we pushed it away. We said, well, this isn't going to bother us. Like, okay, public schools, they're not going to pray in schools. Okay, fine. And then the slippery slope started. Sex ed, like, okay, well, are they going to teach the birds and the bees? Are they going to talk about contraception? Like, and we didn't throw down. I think that it's not so much on the substance. Obviously, that matters, but it's control. They've been conditioning us that they have control for quite some time. That happens at the same time that, the technology's increasing. People are having more access to media on their phones, to computers, there's online presence. But then also, I think we really have to look at, I'm going to tie this into economics, the way that we've had the manufacturing base of our country, the ability for someone to get a decent paying job right out of high school they can support a family on, that has been stolen from us by major global corporations and by Wall Street and shipped overseas to China. And it's had a catastrophic effect, not just on our economy, not just on our national security, but on the American family. You look at how many fatherless homes there are, there's obviously a massive cultural issue there because our culture says that, hey, family doesn't matter. Might makes right. We're the result of what? Some atoms colliding and we evolved from lizards or whatever their theory is. It's saying that, hey, it's all meaningless, but we've taken fathers out of so many of these homes because fathers can't be providers because we've taken away that ability. And so it's just become this top-down onslaught that's really hard, I think, for any one individual or even community to fully deal with. And so I think giving more autonomy back to Americans, it's the only answer, whether that's economically or whether that's what we're talking about with the schools. Like, the parents should be driving that. And right now, I think education is so broken that we need to be providing aggressively school choice, school vouchers, so that the parents can start to pull their kids out of these schools and we just starve the beast.
I want to play a scenario with you.
Sure.
Okay, so you're running for House. You're going to go to D.C. Well, let's say you're in the House in 2000. George Bush is president. We have the House and the Senate. We have control of everything. What did we do wrong then that got us to where we're at now?
Republicans, I think, especially at that time, I just joined the military. I voted for George Bush. It was my first presidential election, as a I think, backlash to the Clinton era. But Republicans at that time really were simply just running on, hey, we're going to cut your taxes. That was basically the Republican platform. Every now and again, you had some wild guys that would talk about, like, hey, pro-life issues, but they were promptly told to be quiet. They're like, this is going to lose us votes. Don't ever talk about abortion because we don't control the culture. We don't control the media. Let's tell the American people that we're the ones that will cut their taxes and, make economic prosperity for them. And so I think we 100% ceded every inch of ground on the cultural issues, on schools, and especially at the local level. It's one thing, as we saw, especially...
Well, we got No Child Left Behind from George Bush.
Yeah.
Right, we got massive federalization in our education system. We're dealing with trans kids in our schools because of No Child Left Behind.
Yeah.
George Bush, the Department of Education was doubled under his, when the Republicans had the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
I remember we had our governor on the show when he was running, was it 2018?
Yeah, I think so.
18?
Yeah, Brad Little.
And we asked him, Trump was elected, and Trump had been running for 2 years, and all these Republicans starting to feel good because someone's actually fighting on behalf of them. And we asked Brad Little on a live show, and we said, what are you going to accomplish if you win?
He actually said, now we have Trump in office. Yep. He said, I think we can make some big plays. And I said, so like what? And he said, I think we can really improve our roads.
Are you done?
Exactly.
Oh, really? You're going to get your big boy pants on, and you're going to improve more. You're going to have less potholes.
Yeah. I mean, because Trump is courageous, and but this is my. So I think George Bush was one of the worst presidents we ever had.
Amen.
Because whoa, I got to clap. Boy, clap.
We might not be using that back door. Okay.
All right. Might be all right.
I'm with you.
For a variety of reasons, but one of the reasons was because he had the House and Senate, and he got No Child Left Behind, didn't do anything about abortion,
the Patriot Act,
and he gave us the Patriot Act.
Well, I mean, the Republican Party prior to Donald Trump, where was the daylight between them and the Democrats? It was the uniparty. These people are globalists, and the assault on sovereignty, whether that's an assault on our economy or whether that's an assault on the American family, it's the same agenda. And so this is why I'm an America First guy. This is why I'm a Trump Republican, because he came and he said we have to stop this, and that's why Trump won in 2016, and no one saw it coming. And that's why there's still appetite for guys like me who ran on a hard America First platform, beat a 12-year incumbent. That's where the base is right now. That's what people see.
Can we talk a little bit about America First?
Yeah.
You were talking about the economy earlier, and I was just thinking, okay, let's say that the Republicans take the House and the Senate, and somehow Joe falls over and slips and signs a bill that you guys are able to get through. Okay, it's not. That's a possibility. That's a possibility.
He was walking off stage and
and he signs it. You know, what kind of? Oh man, we can pray for things like that. What kind of bill would you put through that would cut regulation? What would you cut in regulation to get? Because it's not like we don't have the ability to come out of where we currently are in the inflation, the deflation, stagflation. We can come out of this, but we got to get this regulation under control. It stops people from wanting to work and create and be entrepreneurs. So what kind of regulation would you cut if you can get it signed by a stumble of the president?
So the first one is turning back on U.S. energy. This cycle of inflation we're in right now that's destroying the American economy, that's all self-inflicted. Biden came in day one. Everybody remembers when Trump left office. Gas out here, even with our gas tax, was below $2 per gallon. It wasn't stealing 1 month of wages from every single American in the country. So the first thing we say to Joe Biden, and whether we can get a bill signed or not, I want to use the power of the purse strings and encourage my fellow Republicans to say, hey, we will not sign up on the federal budget. We will defund you unless you turn back on U.S. oil. Reissue the exploratory drilling. Tell the U.S. oil industry that we have their back and we want to go back to full spectrum energy domination. That would be the number one thing that I would do as far as deregulation goes.
Okay, number two.
Yeah.
I like one. Let's go. Let's keep going.
Keep going. Don't stop.
Yeah.
Don't stop.
Number two is bringing back our manufacturing base. Everybody saw during COVID, this isn't some esoteric economic issue. This is we don't control our supply lines. We have food insecurity in the most blessed and bountiful nation in the history of the world because we offshored all of our manufacturing
How do we
lines.
bring manufacturing back?
That's a great question.
That's a competitive wage problem.
Yep. It's a combination of carrots and sticks. So carrots, first off, is we say to all these global corporations that ship their manufacturing lines overseas, we say, hey, look, we need you for the sake of the country to come back. We're going to offer you massive amounts of corporate deregulation. We're going to make sure the EPA isn't strangling you. We're going to offer you up free federal land. We're going to offer you really good corporate tax incentives. However, the stick that we use, the stick that we use is tariffs. If you don't do this, we're going to tariff you, and we're going to build something back here. And this goes for pretty much everything. I think as far as food production and the basic things we need to secure our country, we can grow them here organically. We have to do massive amounts of deregulation. Like for a farmer to go actual farm to table to feed people, it's very difficult because of what the federal government does. And then same thing we have an issue right now. Sleepy Joe almost walked us into another war when he said if China moves on Taiwan, we 100% are committing U.S. troops. He said that, and now why is Taiwan important? Taiwan's important because microchips we need to run everything. We shipped over to Taiwan. We need to bring that back right now.
Well, that's what they just did, though, right? They had the chip bill.
Yeah.
And your thoughts on that?
So I like the spirit of the CHIP Act. I really do. I think it's good that people recognize that we need to bring this back. The devil's always in the details. Number one, the Democrats always put billions of dollars of pork that they can spend at their discretion. So there's that issue. But the other issue is if you're going to bring back an American industry, we need to hire Americans. They put a stipulation in there that they wanted to issue more H-1B visas. They wanted to bring in more foreign workers because the corporate ruling class, they don't want to pay Americans.
But in the CHIP bill, aren't we already picking winners and losers by designating funding to the semiconductor industry?
Right, absolutely. And this is where they should be competing for us. Like if you cut us the best deal, then you're gonna have domination of the market. But again, we do have to say there is an expiration date to this. You won't be able to have your cake and eat it too. We have to say to American companies that want to sell here in our market and want to have their bases here and have access to our markets, we have to say, look, the days are over where you can go overseas and exploit foreign labor and then sell it here to Americans. You don't get both at the same time.
Wow. I want to ask a little bit about immigration.
Yeah.
Also, homelessness. Seems like these are areas maybe also that touch more, again, locally.
Even connected, yeah.
And I think there's sort of federal issues related to that, and there's local issues related to that. Ray, start off. What's the role of sheriff in these areas with the mass influx of illegals, many of whom are just desperate for a better life, some of which are criminals, and then homelessness, and they're not completely unrelated. But what's the sheriff's job in all that?
Well, first let me say this. I just attended a ceremony just yesterday or the day before where 1,000 new Americans came on. They applied, and some of them it actually took, 20 years to get to the place where they were at. One of the lady that I went there, Marie, she was so excited, so happy that she had become an American citizen. It took her 5 years and thousands of dollars to become an American citizen. But they did it the right way.
She should have just walked over the border and got
$450,000. No, negative.
No, she had to pay for it.
Yeah, well, she did it the right way. We need to do a couple things, and that's where I think Joe's going to come in and help. We're going to have to make it easier and less restrictive. It shouldn't take 5 years to become an American citizen. It should not take that long.
That's right.
We should be able to know we should be able to vet those people. We should know where they came from, and we can have all that information done very quickly. It doesn't take 5 years and several $1,000s to do it. That's why that's what we need to have immigration reform. Let's first start there. Secondly, let's talk about the illegal aliens that are coming across the border. I last heard, 2 million had come across?
Yeah.
2 million? How many of those have been vetted? Maybe 0. We know that there is a danger that some of these people that are coming across are from terrorist nations that do not have our best will at heart. We need to do something about it. Right now, the federal government demands that we don't do anything. A lot of our local offices are telling people, hey, just stay away from it. Don't cooperate with ICE. Don't cooperate with the federal government. Don't try to stop illegal immigration. Well, that's nonsense. We have to do something right. We have to be able to say, look, if there is illegal immigration coming into Clark County, we need to at least cooperate with ICE, cooperate with the federal government to stem that tide, because it destroys the very fabric of our nation. We have to have legal immigration. That's what I'm for.
So as sheriff, is there anything practical that you can do in this?
We first have to follow the law right now. Right now, the federal government is designated as the entity to can handle immigration. But we need to start looking at other avenues, at least when we find out that a lot of our immigration things are going on, are committing crimes that are prosecutable. Identity theft. We can prosecute for that, and we should. People utilizing Social Security numbers illegally, prosecute for that. We have people that are using identities not just once or twice, but we know that is all identity theft. We can do something about that, and we should. And your local sheriff and your local prosecutors should be prosecuting those crimes. We had a situation, and I'll just be bold about it, and I hope that this doesn't insult you.
Oh, we're not very bold here.
I don't. Yeah, I can see you guys. You guys are very laid back about this. I like this.
We're pretty sheepish.
We had a situation which was sad. I wish it could have been. This person could have been here legally. Found out that she was stealing someone else's identity, the Social Security, the name, the whole bit. But yet she was working, and doing a very good job, I might add. But then once we found out about this, we had to go and act on it, and I did act on it. But then, was it prosecuted? The answer is no. So, what are we going to do? Are we going to obey the laws, and are we going to have the laws that fit everybody, or are we going to make exceptions where, because you're an illegal immigrant, you do not get prosecuted for these crimes? So as a sheriff, I certainly want to be able to prosecute these identity theft crimes, and I certainly will.
I want to remind you all that we have 3x5 cards in the back on the round tables, and if there are questions that are occurring to you that you would like us to ask Joe or Ray, please feel free to pop up, grab one, and we'll be collecting those in a little bit. Joe, immigration.
Yeah.
I didn't finish.
Oh, really?
And he's got a gun on him. You let him talk.
Is this Ray or Ray?
You told me at the beginning that I could interrupt you at any time. Is that what you said?
Are you interrupting?
I'm interrupting.
Sorry, Joe, you got interrupted.
I'm sorry.
Go.
I believe right now that's what I want to do with immigration. Now let's talk about homelessness.
Do it.
How many people in here have seen an increase in homelessness in our area?
Oh, wow.
What? That is unacceptable.
Oh, wow.
What are we looking at? We are looking at Seattle. We are looking at Portland. All of that. That's probably not the right word. We can't say that over the air, can we? Filth. Moving up here. We can't allow that to happen. Now, let's talk about homelessness real quick. There are 3 types of homeless people out there. We can't treat them as a homogenous group.
Good. That's good.
No, we need to look at them individually. There's we have our acutely homeless, our chronically homeless, and our criminally homeless. And as a sheriff, we have to recognize that there are 3 types. Your acutely homeless are people that just don't want to be homeless. They just are at the moment. We need to do everything we can to help that acutely homeless person. And we can. There are services that we provide. I developed a program called The Net that just reaches right out there and takes care of them. And within days, not weeks, not months, utilizing this homeless industry philosophy for taking months to help people, we can do it within days to help people. Help the acutely homeless. But then there's the chronically homeless. Those are the folks that are homeless because they want to be. We can still help them, right? We can still offer them services. We can still, but when they refuse to obey the law, when they refuse to try to get a job and only want to take a handout, that's where we say enough is enough, and we start practicing what I call compassionate accountability. That means we're compassionate, yes.
Oh man, you starting to sound like George Bush
but
to me.
we hold them accountable. There were some good things about George Bush. We hold them accountable to what they're doing.
Let's have that debate.
We might. We hold them accountable for what they're doing. And what about the criminally homeless? What do?
Prosecute.
We arrest them. We arrest them. We take them to jail. And we
I
depend
thought your
upon
jails are already full.
Right now they are, but that's a whole different discussion. We need to get into that.
Okay,
we do have full jails, but that's only because of mismanagement on the part of many entities, and that's why you want to have a sheriff there to correct that right away.
But what is it when you're talking about accountability? Who's doing the accountability part? Who's doing that? Who's checking in on the homeless?
With the homeless people.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's what we want to do. The accountability has to be your local sheriff, your local prosecuting attorney. We have to work together to make sure that they are held accountable.
So they become some sort of babysitters at some point, basically. Then, right?
Well, that's what we don't want, is to have any babysitting. We do not want to have enablement, and that's what's happening a lot with our chronically and our criminally homeless. We are enabling them to stay here. We're saying, well, tell you what, we're gonna pay you money so that you can be out here. We're going to give you some more housing. We're going to give you some more tents. But we're not solving the problem.
Ray, as part of the problem, it seems to me part of the problem is that frequently everybody looks at law enforcement and the government to solve this problem.
And that is absolutely not the case.
And that's part of the problem with this. I mean,
I agree.
When you have criminals, we call the sheriff, we call the cops.
Well, then why'd you create a program?
That is your sphere.
Well, that's the whole point, because we can't do it alone. That's why we need all of you out there. And we need people like you to actually say, let's step in and be a part of it.
What does that look like? What does that look like?
Here's what it looks like. Say you own a business. Okay. Say you own a ability to house people. Say you own somebody that knows about addiction. An officer only has maybe 5 to 10 minutes to deal with the situation out there. But if we work together in a net program like I'm talking about, you as an employer, you as an addiction counselor, you as a person who has housing, and you that has other opportunities, you can all come together, and we can work together to help that homeless person.
Private institution to come in.
We develop a network of people to help, and we surround the homeless people with those services. Then we can help. And then we address the issue. We address the addiction. We address the mental illness, and we address their ability to have funding.
Okay, so I think that's a good bridge to start getting to a particular direction, but aren't we, this kind of maybe something that you could answer too, we have such a broken home problem that we're going to keep having to deal with this bridge we're going to keep having to deal with these people at this particular place. We got to start somewhere earlier with some of this.
Well, that's where the church comes in.
Right,
and I think right now, and I'll say it boldly, and I hope it doesn't insult any church members or church pastors or anything.
Stop apologizing.
The church has fallen down and has not stood up when that is its primary job. If the church would stand up and say, this is what we should be doing, we should be stepping up and working on the morality of the area. We should be boldly standing up and saying, hey, we can get involved in this, in the community. Right now, the church is pulled back from the community, and it should not. We have to have you involved, and as part of the NET program that I'm saying, I'm going to encourage more churches. I'm going to encourage more people of faith, more people to come and get involved in actually solving the problem, because that's where it happens.
You know, I like it when politicians, when you ask a politician, what are you going to do? And they say, what are you going to do?
What is the church going to do?
But what are you going to do?
I agree.
I mean, what is it? Reagan's, famous, saying that
10 words.
The scariest 10 words in the English language.
From the government.
I'm from the government. I'm here to help you. And then frequently, I mean, even conservative Christians are like, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And part of the politician's job is to say, well, actually, there's a part here that's in my job description, but a whole bunch of that's not in my job description. A bunch of this is for your churches to figure out. A bunch of this is for your businesses to figure out. You're the people. Do you want? Do you want this?
Isn't that the whole thing that we really want? This is not just about the sheriff. It's not just about your elected official.
That's right.
It's about us as a society, us as a community. That's what makes us strong. Our community makes us strong. We can't just sit there and say, Joe, we want you to solve the problem for us, Joe. We want you to stand out there all by yourself and do it. He's going to do everything he can, but he can't do it alone. I, as your sheriff, I can't do it alone. And so far, we can look at the system where you have this increasing homelessness, you have this increasing illegal immigration. We can't just sit back and say, we want you to do it. So it is a right for me to say, look,
Amen.
What can we do as a community to solve this problem?
All right, Joe.
Joe's gripping his mic like a machine gun.
We lit Ray up. We lit him on fire.
Are you done now? Are you done now?
I'm okay now.
He keeps scooting back from the table just a little more every time.
I'm going to put it down now.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, so really it comes down to priorities. And what does our government consistently prioritize? They consistently prioritize Americans last. If you look at everything from immigration to trade, and all this ties into morally, to what you're saying downstream, like how come this problem exists in the first place? We've opened our border up. We shipped away the ability for people to leave high school, get a decent paying job. What did we think was going to happen?
Raise minimum wage.
Yeah, so we have to start with, raise the minimum wage seems to be the typical, like, well, we'll just pay some people some more money and we'll have the government dictate that. And then we wonder why all they do is hire illegal immigrants under the table. That's what I love it when the Democrats say, like, oh, we need to raise the minimum wage. Like, pick a number. It doesn't matter. The corporate ruling classes are not going to pay that. That's a scam. It's a gimmick. They're going to bring in more illegal immigrants. They're going to bring in these specialized visas that work at a rate to 3 to 1 compared to your average American. So priorities is what it's all about. Number one, let's secure our own border. We've been told for the last 6 to 8 months that our priority has to be the Eastern Russian-speaking border of Ukraine, and we need to send billions of dollars over there. Meanwhile, our border is open. It's under invasion. The Mexican cartels are controlling a flow of humans and a flow of fentanyl, enough fentanyl to kill every American 2 or 3 times over, and we're told that we shouldn't care about that. So day one, when we get in there, and we still have the Biden regime to deal with, Biden is getting impeached. We are dropping impeachment paperwork for Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Mayorkas for what they've done to our border.
So we could
put them on offense.
We could have impeached Biden alone for how he's his derelicted duty.
100%. I mean, the thing with Biden, it's like take a pick what you want to impeach him for. I think the border, him as commander in chief, that's the most glaring. And he day one, he basically caused that invasion, leaving Americans on the battlefield in Afghanistan. All the corruption that's been uncovered. And look, this is going to start to put them on defense. They've been on offense for the last 2 years almost. So it's a tactical move, but then also we're going to go, and the only way you get these unelected bureaucrats' attention is you start going after their pocketbooks. While we still have Biden in office, until we can get Trump back in there and start reallocating resources down south, we have to say, hey, look, DHS, if you're not defending our border, we're not going to fund you. My job as a congressman is to be a good steward of the taxpayer's dollar. If you're not doing what you say you're going to do, we're not going to fund you. That's how we get their attention. At the same time, we go and we attempt to remove Mayorkas through the impeachment process as well. But also foreign aid. I'm not a fan of most foreign aid in general because I want to put our country first. But it is a stick that we can wield. When Trump couldn't get the wall built, he simply said to all the South American countries, stop the flow of the immigrants or I'm going to cut off your foreign aid. Wouldn't you know it, the caravan stopped. Yeah, onesies and twosies were still coming across the border. The border wasn't secure, but the massive flow of humans stopped. So we have some control right there with the budget process. Once we can get Trump or another good America First Republican back in there in 2024, I hope and pray we can, we need to get the military down there to actually build and finish the wall. I want to create a command. We have commands for every single part of the world. I worked in most of them when I was in the military. We need a border command. We need military units down there securing and defending our border. If the Mexican government wants to partner with us, we go after the cartels. I mean, if you look at post 9/11, guys like me, we went and we chased terrorists to the far-flung corners of the world, but they called Trump crazy for wanting to start launching missiles at the Mexican cartels. So get hard on that side of the border. On this side of the border, most illegal immigrants that have come over, they're just pragmatic people looking for an economic way forward for their families and them. If we cut off their ability to earn money here, if we start enforcing mandatory E-Verify, cutting off their access to our social welfare network, then most of them are just going to leave. They're pragmatic folks, and that's going to let us allocate law enforcement resources to go after the actual bad hombres that are here.
You know, I like you, Joe.
I was just going to say the exact opposite.
That's a good place. That's a good place to stop.
No, I
Thank
do.
you.
But this is why.
I don't trust politicians.
Well, no.
And Joe's.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of liking him. He's winning me over. But here's the thing. I was looking at your website. You were talking about term limits. And when I listen to you talk, I'm like, there ain't a whole lot of people on the conservative side that sound like you do. And what do you want to do? 2 term limits is what you were after at the end of the day?
3. So
3?
yeah,
okay.
3 tours.
All right. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
That's only 6 years with Joe Kent.
That's what I was thinking about. 6 years. Do you think that you're going to be able to accomplish the kind of things that you want to accomplish in 6 years?
I think in 6 years we can get our country out of the crisis we're in right now. That's 2 years to fight the Biden administration as hard as we can.
But that's out.
And then 4 years to give Trump. I believe it's going to be Trump the Congress that he actually deserves. But then from there, I think it's going to be on me to say, hey, I'll run for a different office. Maybe I'll come back to the state. I just think when we start pushing politicians to be in D.C. around a decade,
you lose your soul.
I mean, look, the thing is, especially if Congress, I've been running now for. I've been running now for almost 2 years. When I get elected in November, I basically have to come back in 6 months and say, hey guys, I'm up for re-election again. I need your money. And this is how they get you. They get you in D.C. and they say, you don't have time to go back to your district. Let us take care of your financing. We just need you to vote these couple different ways. I'm going to fight that. I was fought heavily by the Republican establishment. I'm still not taking any corporate PAC money. I'm going to be accountable to the people. Good. But I think the best way that we can really start to force that function, thank you, is, I mean, look, we term limit the president, but coincidentally, Congress and the Senate, they haven't ever passed any laws that term limit themselves. And so I just, there's a couple, like, I really like Rand Paul. I think he's doing great. I hope he never gets term limited out. But for every one Rand Paul, there is, like, we've had Patty Murray. Tiffany Smiley's a Republican running against her, going to take her out. Everybody here has got to support her. But Patty Murray has been, I think, 36, 37 years she's been in that seat. I mean, man, at some point, these guys got to have an expiration date.
Yeah, I just wonder if the place that we're at, we'll be able to get out of it in 6 years. And if we do get out of it, we still need to set forth a vision.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, too. I think that we're looking and say, man, things are worse than they were 20 years ago.
Right.
But 20 years ago is what got us to where we're currently at now. So we have to have another vision set after we get out of this.
And the lesson of 2020 and the lesson of the Trump era has to be, as much as I'm a Trump guy, one person can't save us. Joe and Ray can't save you. It does have to be all of us at every single level. When a politician strays, primary him. I primaried a 12-year incumbent. Frankly, she should have been primaried a lot sooner. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so, like Ray said, like you guys have all said, we have to get involved at every single level. This is something that the Democrats have been really, really good about. The Democrats' religion is political activation. It's political mobilization. And they've done that. And they've taken over school boards and all these positions, PUD, these positions that we thought didn't matter at all. And now look at where we're at right now. Right. So the lesson that we've learned from 2020 has got to be every level, every seat matters.
That is absolutely true. I mean, I don't remember, but before 2020, I didn't know who my city council was. I didn't know who my county commissioners were. I didn't know my health district, my sheriff. Wow. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh, all these things matter.
They control everything.
Who's doing this to me?
Right.
I don't even know their name.
Right. And they like it that way.
We got just time for a couple more questions, I think, before we go to Q&A. Okay. Is that where we are? I just want to make sure. Again, so just a reminder, if you have questions, go back there, write down your questions on the cards. I want to ask an interesting question here. I want to ask you each, what advice would you give to each other? So, as a sheriff, what do you want to advise Joe in as a representative? And then Joe, as a representative, what would you advise Ray when he's elected as sheriff to do for Clark County?
Joe, remember where you came from. Remember the people here. They need you to represent them. You represent us. And so represent our attitudes, our ideas, and our values to a godless, criminal, corrupt, and bring the light of Clark County to there.
And don't take the money.
Don't take the
Don't
money.
take the money.
It's a trap.
Okay, exactly. That's how they get you.
Don't take the money.
I know that came from. I know that reference.
Joe.
Yeah, this is easy. Ray, just keep being yourself. I mean, I think you've been successful so far because you speak truth. You speak from a place of the Constitution and defending our God-given rights. And you know, there's been other people that have been in the race that are probably really good law enforcement officers on their own, but they're thinking about bureaucratic procedure. Ray has stuck out, and Ray is, I think, pulling ahead because Ray is talking about the constitutional issues and making sure if 2020 happens again here in Clark County, we're going to have somebody that's going to defend us from that. So just keep on keeping on.
Yes.
That's good.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
So,
can let's bring those cards up while we can bring those cards up.
Max, raise your hand. Raise your hand.
Start collecting those cards.
There we go.
Give me cards.
And you can bring them up if you got them.
So, Joe,
give them to Max.
Like I said to Knox, I mean, I have a huge distrust of politicians.
He's allergic to politicians. He really is.
You know, and I got to bring this up every show because it's true. I grew up in Texas, where we call it the Promised Land. If you ever heard of it, you know what I'm saying? You know, and you could shake a politician's hand in Texas, and like they communicated like they were your best friend.
Just slimy, just slick,
just shaking their hand like that. The way they trust the way they communicate trust through that handshake, and then they would go off to D.C. and get us 45,000 TSA agents. You know, and it's like, oh my goodness, who am I even talking to? I'm getting two-faced, you know, George Bush here. And
that's really why he's so mad, is because George Bush is from Texas.
And he gave us 45,000 TSA agents.
And told us there's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
And we're sitting here crying about 87,000 IRS agents. What did George Bush give us?
Yeah.
We can't analyze our own selves. We can't see our own selves. We can look at the dude in the prosthetic boobs and be like, that's a problem.
Right.
You know, but
facts.
we can't, you know, but we can't see ourselves. So that's why I have such a hard time trusting politicians, because I've seen the relationships, I've shook in the hands, and I've seen, you know, and then I just get these knives out of my back, you know. So with that said,
can I jump in there on that?
Nope.
See, it doesn't matter now. We can't interrupt you now. Is that what it is?
You can try.
All right.
Who are you voting for, Trump or DeSantis, and why is it Ron DeSantis?
Oh. Loaded question. So, look, I'm a Trump supporter. Obviously, whoever the Republican nominee is going to be, that's who I'm going to support, because I think this America First wave is taking over. So I feel confident that we're going to get somebody that's going to fight for those values. Look, I'm a Trump guy, and I'll tell you why. Right now, the fight that we're in, we need someone who this is their last mission. This is the last time they're going to charge that hill. When Trump came into office in 2016, he was already, you know, up there in years. He's very sharp. He's not anything compared to Joe Biden. He's on his game. I talk to the guy every now and again. But look, Trump is unique in so many different ways. Ron DeSantis and I think he's a great guy. We're about the same age. He's got a young family. He wants a huge career in politics. Donald Trump has already been into the belly of the beast. He's been betrayed by all the people he thought that he could trust. He's had the media be absolutely merciless against him, and he understands how all those systems work. I just think, and he's independently wealthy. I think he has this combination of factors right now that I don't think anyone else has. And when he goes back in there in 2024, it's our chance to take apart the Leviathan that is the administrative state. And we need someone who's from outside of government, who's been nothing but betrayed by government. We need someone with that fire in their belly. We need someone like Donald Trump, who's had the FBI kick in his door. I mean, Donald Trump's a native New Yorker. He basically got ran out of New York for the free state of Florida, thanks to Ron DeSantis. You know, it's a team effort, but I think he is in the perfect position right now to lead us on this final assault. He did the initial breach in 2016 through the establishment, and now this final assault on the establishment, I think it's got to be Trump.
That's really good.
Ray? Same question to you, Ray.
Am I going to vote for Trump or to DeSantis? Right now, I'm solid behind Trump. Why is that? Trump has done something that no one else did. He brought black people up so that they had the least number of employed before. It was amazing. More black people were employed. More businesses were started. We had minorities were raised up like they'd never have before. And that's the truth. That's what's happened. That's reality. Why do I support someone that does that, that speaks his words and says what he means? Because that's what I like to see. I don't think you say you don't like politicians, and I wanted to address it. But when you see somebody that actually represents you and believes in the Constitution and does exactly what he says he's going to do, I don't think that qualifies for a politician under that definition. I believe it's somebody that we need to look for. We need to look at what they've done. How much have they done to try to do wrong to this man? How many times have we seen them try to frame in our America illegal actions taken? I believe strongly in our Constitution. When I go for a search warrant against a house, against a criminal, I write a long, what's called an affidavit, where I swear before a judge that what I've said is true. And it fits underneath the Fourth Amendment so that the laws are protected. When we use lies, untruths, false documents, spies from other countries to destroy a man, destroy an American, we should be outraged. Now, this is for you. And it doesn't mean I'm just a Trump supporter, which means I don't care about other people and all that silliness. No, it means when you have a person that stands for what's right, then you need to get behind him and say, that person stands for what's right. That's not a politician. That's someone who represents me. So as far as I know about Desantis, good man. Does exactly what he's saying the right things and he's doing great stuff. But I have a tried and true tested person in Trump. Let's go.
All right, all right. We'll talk later.
I don't want to be there for that talk.
You ready for some of these questions?
I actually am. Yeah.
Are you guys ready for some of these questions?
Bring it on.
You ready? Okay. Here we go. I think this is a softball, but we'll see. What's your position on assault rifles and magazine capacities? For both of you.
You know, the AR stands for assault rifle.
No, it doesn't. Anyway, where my position on it? Well, I believe 30 is a good start. I believe that you should have the right to keep and bear arms. I believe there's somewhere in the Constitution where it says that you, as an individual, have the right to keep and bear arms. And I believe that that Second Amendment needs to be held beyond whatever we say. I don't agree with this trying to hold back on a number of rounds you can have. That makes no sense at all. That's downright silly.
You don't think those criminals are going to obey that?
For some odd reason, it hasn't happened before, and it won't happen now.
It's like, how many?
We're only those laws that are coming out. They're limiting the lawful, legal Americans. It won't affect at all these criminals that are out there to target you and make you into a victim, and that's what we've been seeing lately. What was the second part of that question?
That was it. I think pretty much assault rifles and magazine capacity. I think you did it.
And tanks.
I think you did. And tanks. Joe?
Gun laws are infringements. Like any gun law is an infringement. The Second Amendment is very, very clear about our right to keep and bear arms and to have the government have a healthy fear of us. So I would get rid of the ATF. I would get rid of the National Firearms Act. Yep. We just need to no gun laws.
Keep going. Keep going.
Don't stop.
Constitutional carry, 100%. Yeah. Not just, you don't need a permission slip from the government to carry a firearm, concealed or not concealed. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
You have your permit. It's called the Constitution.
You have your Constitution.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't bother you to have a very armed citizenry then? You don't mind that at all?
I absolutely want an armed citizenry.
There you go. You go.
You see, it's important to me because, can I just take a little bit?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Take your shoes off, man.
We lit him on fire again. Like
it's your fault. You should know.
He's following my advice.
We went, and a group of us, me and some friends of mine, we went and we did some shooting down in Arizona, and it was fantastic. And I thought I was all that in 2 bags of chips when I as far as being a shooter. You know, I really know what I'm doing. This is great stuff. I've been a police officer for 37 years. I'm going to show these these guys.
Common folk.
Yeah, the common folk. You know, the poor people.
I know who you're talking about.
The people that are just, you know.
Damn.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to show them what it's really like to be a real officer and how to shoot. We got down there, and we started shooting, and I learned very quickly that an armed citizenry can feel a whole lot better than a police officer. I was embarrassed by the degree of skill, abilities, technical knowledge that these men had. It was fantastic to be amongst. So in answer to your question, we need more armed citizenry. And I believe very strongly that if you have the legal right to carry a firearm, you should be carrying a firearm.
That's good. That's good. One question here. How can we fight back against the teachers' unions? We don't have a lot of options in our area for private schools.
Yeah, this is where we need to defund the federal Department of Education. It's not in the Constitution. Washington, D.C.'s got nothing to do with schools.
Yeah. Defund the Department of Education, is that what you said?
The federal Department of Education, yeah. Okay. It's not in the Constitution. It's not a role of the federal government. Right. So start hacking away at some of that bureaucracy. Now, at the same time, I fully support school choice, school vouchers. In a perfect world, when a parent pulls their kid out of school to homeschool or to go to private school, the money should follow them. The problem I have from the federal perspective... Or
it shouldn't leave them.
Or it should leave them. Yeah, the problem I have, though, is that Washington State controls a lot of that. So what I do want to do from the federal perspective is I do want there to be a federal voucher program where you can either have deductions, tax deductions for families, or you are given the ability, you're given the funding to put your kids in private school and in public schools so that we can just start to starve these public schools. I think, every September when they do a head count, how many kids are there, that's where their funding comes from. If every September they have less and less kids, these schools are going to eventually have to start being accountable to us here in Washington State. Now, the easiest way, it's not the easiest way, but if we can flip the legislature in Olympia and get Republicans up there, then we could have a state program that actually does defund, that pulls the funds, and the funds actually follow the kids, something like they have down in Arizona right now.
Okay, so if I understand you, you're saying that, okay, Washington State's liberal, and so they control all the funds, so there's never going to be a state voucher program right now.
Yep.
And so you're saying, well, maybe we could do some sort of federal tax rebate or something that would allow the parents who want to do private school, homeschool, whatever, to do something. Doesn't that still kind of keep, the federal hands in the jar a little bit?
It unfortunately does, and I agree with you. This kind of goes against something that a traditional conservative would say. However, I think we're in a crisis situation. I think our public schools are absolutely teaching our kids horrible. Not all of them. There's some good schools here in Clark County that are fighting that.
Hang on here.
But the schools are teaching our kids.
This is where the big boob guy walks in, and I'm like, okay, what 20 years ago you should have been seeing about our public schools that got us this way?
Yep.
Right? We've been teaching evolution in our school for 100 years. Yep. I mean, like, why weren't we jumping up and down about that?
I agree.
Why weren't we jumping up and down when the prayer in school got taken out in '63? Why aren't we jumping down? And then now we're getting to you're saying these things like, well, there's some good schools here. It's like, actually, they're all going the same direction.
Because I like
so the parents need control, and so this is what I want to do, and this is why I'm willing to kind of deviate from like, hey, typically the government should stay out of it. We do need a program for conservatives that are in blue states like Washington, where they can get a little bit of a lifeline. They can pull their kids out of these schools, and we start starving them. I don't want this to be, a long-term thing that we do, which is hard to kill government programs. I understand. I understand there's a lot. I understand there's a lot of problems with what I'm saying, but I do for parents right now who are like, I can't afford to homeschool. I can't afford private schools. My income tax is still going to these horrible schools I want to pull my kids out of. I want to be able to give them the ability to start to get their kids out of there. So every September going forward, there's less and less kids sitting in those public schools, and we start starving them.
And Joe, that's what
the schools, not the kids.
I like starving. I like starving. Starving's good. Starve them.
And I think what we need to do too is we have to think local. Now, great, we can go federal and all that, but that's where you come in. That's where you have to start running for these local offices. You have to look at who's on the school board.
That's right.
Who's messing around with our especially like our Vancouver Lake, that whole area in there. Who is on those boards? Most of them right now are people that are progressive thinkers. That progressive meaning that's their movement. I don't just say Democrats and liberals. I say that progressive movement is destructive. And you need to start running for those offices. Get local. Find out who's on the Washougal school board. Get involved on the Vancouver School District. Find out what their equity and inclusion and exclusion rules are.
Yeah, I think I like what you're talking about because you're talking about starving them out. I also want to say this because you have to do that because you're taking your money, right? So you have to go after your money. But while you're going after your money, rescue your kids first. Right, so don't forget, like, don't act like for 1 second that the education that they're giving your kids is going to be better than what you can give, mom and dad.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, look, they're teaching your kids evolution to school. Don't act like all of a sudden, and they're allowing people to come in who are giving your kids some sort of sex training and transgenderism and homosexuality and porn literacy. Don't act like you can't give your kids a better education.
That's right.
If you give your kid a phone and tell them look up how to do math and just let them do it, they'll probably get a better math education on YouTube than they would at these government schools.
That's right.
I mean, let's stop acting like these people are better than us.
They're not.
They're not. God gave you these kids.
That's right.
God said, listen, you're going to give this kid life. 9 months, you're going to carry him in the womb. You go to work to feed these kids. And so, yeah, you need to get your money, but also remember, look, you have a great education. You fear God. Be encouraged to do the little things you can do. If you train your kids faithfully just over 8 years, that's a better education they would get at these government schools. Right. So take heart in that.
We've been saying this for years, that if the Republicans don't have a solution for public education, because all the public schools are doing, all they're doing is training kids to grow up and vote Democrat.
Yeah,
that's true. They're doing that in Idaho. The reason why Idaho, particularly Boise, has gone liberal already, we have a liberal mayor in Boise, is not because Californians moving the state. 4 out of every 5 voters that move from out of state into Idaho are voting conservative. 4 out of 5 voters.
Wow.
Boise is going liberal because our public education system is home growing those liberals, and every public school is heading that direction. And Republicans aren't serious if they aren't going to deal with the public school problem, because there's not going to be a Republican Party in 40 years if they keep this
up. A big
up.
issue is giving families that freedom. So obviously school choice, school vouchers, but also the Republican Party, I want to make us the pro-working family party and really have a tax incentive that gives people the ability to have a tax deduction for children to encourage one parent to stay home. Doesn't matter if it's a mom, doesn't matter if it's a dad. Yeah. But I think if you have kids, you should be getting a significant deduction in your taxes. I think up to 10 grand is a good spot to do it. Yeah. I'm not even, and I'll say something here, and a lot of fiscal conservatives might hate me, but I'm not even opposed to child tax credits. The devil's in the details how we do that. But I want parents to have the freedom, because right now, the way the economy is structured, and this is all by design, they want both parents working 8 or 9 hours a day, and they want the kids raised by school. They want you to hand your kids to school. That's why you hear when they do the Build Back Better, they say, you know, pre-K and child care, that's infrastructure, so the parents can get back to work and go pay their taxes, and then the state takes care of the kids. No, we need to reverse that. We need to really start working towards a one-income household so parents can have that freedom to do exactly what you just said.
That's right.
Yeah. And we need to... I kind of wanted to cover something really quick because it kind of moves into that. How many of you know that you don't have the right to control the medications that your kid gets at school? How many of you know that? Not very many. Did you know that that the school can mandate what they call social emotional learning in your schools?
Yep.
And you have no say on that in Washington State? Did you know that? How many knew that? I only see 5 hands. Did you know that there are school-based centers? The schools are not required to notify parents prior to service of gender-affirming care, abortion, depression medication, and birth control. How many knew that? That's right. One more thing, and then I want to make a point here. Did you know that that right now the laws have been passed in Washington State which prohibit insurance companies from informing parents of treatment for their minors? You still get to pay the bill, but you're not told why.
Wow.
And one last thing, and these are bills that have been passed in Washington State currently affecting your children. This bill was passed in 2021. It mandates, did you hear the word? Mandates gender-affirming care be covered by your insurance companies. These are the laws that have been passed in Washington State and are effective right now. There's something we need to do. We need to get this changed. We need to put people in positions of authority to change these laws. If you care for your children, if you care for what's going on, you need to get involved. And that's that's absolutely critical.
And remember, gender-affirming care, that is mutilating your children of castration, and that is chemical castration via the pharmaceutical industry. Tell your friends, gender-affirming sounds nice, right? But it's mutilation and castration of minors.
Get your kids out of the government schools.
Facts.
So we got what one or two more questions, and then we'll end with you guys kind of giving a 5-minute pitch on why we don't trust you and why we should donate to your campaign. Okay, all right. We're going. So Ray, this question is actually for you. Will you arrest the prosecuting attorney for violating his oath of office if he refuses to prosecute criminals such as groomers and so forth?
Who wrote that question? Salute.
Look at that grin. Look at that grin.
No. Let's be clear. We have two different branches here. We have your sheriff's office that investigates crime and investigates that crime and then brings that information to our prosecuting attorney. We need to have and elect prosecuting attorneys that are willing to obey the law. Those that aren't, we need to vote them out. That's the answer to that question. Vote them out. Why do we have one prosecuting attorney that runs unopposed? Why is that happening? Are there no attorneys? Do we have any attorneys in this room? Probably not, thank God.
Man, but I mean, we need lawyers.
I didn't mean that.
That little young man over there, he'll run. He raises his
hand. What I'm saying is that it's critically important that we as the sheriff's office, we as the prosecuting attorney's office, work together to protect your rights as a citizen.
Because you're arguing that prosecuting attorney has legal authority to not prosecute or prosecute.
Right.
Or she.
That's correct.
Has that authority to do it or not.
That's right.
So what would be like an arrestable offense for a prosecuting attorney?
Murder?
Acting under color of authority. That would be one that I would think of right off the bat. If you're, if they're doing something that's acting under color of authority, it's same for your sheriff. Acting under color of authority, they could be arrested.
Which is why you got to get involved. You got to know who your prosecuting attorney is, because the legal issue is actually more that the prosecuting attorney keeps getting voted back in.
Right. We have to know that that is a critical part of our social system. If we don't take the authority and put the people in there that are going to prosecute crimes and not carry out a progressive agenda, then we will have what's happening right now. And what's happening right now? Crime is up 66% as far as car thefts.
In Clark County?
In Clark County.
Whoa.
Do you know we have car thefts that are off the roof? Assaults, attempted murders. All day yesterday I spent going from one call to the next, to the next, to the next. One guy ran down the street, Main Street, and there's just assaulting people left and right. Ended up assaulting 5 different people. Why is that? Because the criminals are emboldened by some of these laws we just went over. They're emboldened by the lack of prosecution. Emboldened by saying, hey, even if I do get arrested, I'm going to be allowed an alternative to incarceration. No, we need to hold people accountable. We need to arrest them when they need to be arrested. And we need to make sure we have opportunities afterwards for them to come after it. It is up to us as a community to protect ourselves. But at the same time, we must hold our prosecuting attorneys especially accountable for their actions.
Well, there you go.
That's on y'all.
Joe, audit or abolish the Federal Reserve?
Abolish. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's safe to say our experiment in central banking has failed. If you look at the way our country ran before and after, we're being driven off a cliff right now. Not only by Joe Biden's policies, energy drives that, but also look, we've given the Fed, this government entity that's sort of ran by unelected bureaucrats, but in conjunction with a couple major banks, the ability to just create money. And that has devalued our currency. At the same time, we shipped our manufacturing base overseas. Right now, we are running really on good faith that no other country is going to challenge our status as a prime reserve currency holder. That's the only reason we can get away with that. And every action that we've taken in the last 3 decades has undermined our strength because, again, we shipped our manufacturing overseas. We fought endless wars that cost us $9 trillion, 8,000 dead. We've opened our border up. We are not a country anymore that has the fundamental strength to run these absolute crazy debts right now. And the number one purchaser of our debts is the Chinese Communist Party. We're relying on someone who's at war with us to buy up our debt bonds, and that all starts with the Federal Reserve. Audit's a great place to start, but the overall goal has to be moving towards a more decentralized system.
Man.
You trust him yet?
I'm getting closer.
Ray,
getting closer.
Ray, what action would you take if the feds start coming after MAGA supporters, if any?
What if, like, they raided, you know, one of Trump's houses in your county?
I've been telling people that I have classified documents in my house, and the FBI hasn't shown up yet.
They haven't?
No, I don't know.
Give them time.
Yeah.
Someone asked me that question before, and I was real simple. What does the Constitution say? The Constitution says if someone comes on your property and they come to your door and they say, we'd like to come into your house and we'd like to see you bring out weapons. Let's give an example. Can I give you an example? Will that be all right? Yeah. Say 2 officers from the feds came to your house and said, I heard that you purchased 2 weapons at the same time. You purchased those 2 weapons at the same time, and we're here because that flags us. We're wondering if you're making straw purchases. Anybody know what straw purchases are? There you go. A straw purchase is when you buy a weapon for somebody else. You give it, and you're not supposed to do that.
I call that a gift.
Okay. So what happens if, and then they're on your property and they're talking to you? Do you have to talk to them? Anybody say you have to talk to them? Anybody? You do not. They say, well, we want you to show us your weapons. We want you to just take them out for us. We'll see that you still have them, and then we'll leave. Do you have to do that? Why? What protects you? Constitution protects you, that 4th Amendment right against unlawful search and seizure, right?
My sheriff also, I would call him, be like, hey.
I'm getting there.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to get there. But first, you've got to take authority. You don't sit there and just take abuse, right? Understand your Constitution. Get that Constitution out and read it. It covers you. It's a blanket. It's a protective hedge. That's what you need. So you can tell the person, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to let you become one. And now we say, well, we want to stay here, and you're going to answer our questions. You need to leave my property.
Sorry.
Simple as that. well, wait a minute. We're the ATF. We're the FBI. We're the blah, 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 whatever 3-letter. You need to leave my property because this is still America. This is still, the Constitution covers me. Get off my property. Now they say, well, we're the feds and we don't have to leave. Get on the phone, call 911, call for the sheriff, and say, we have some trespassers here, and I need you to come and take them off my property. Your sheriff will come and say, it's time for you boys to leave, you girls to leave. If you don't, then we'll give you a little experience in my jail.
You all right. You all right.
We'll let you experience my jail.
You know what?
That's not radical thinking. That's just expressing your civil rights.
Yeah.
I said before, and I'll say it again. We are in the civil rights battle of our day.
That's right.
If you don't believe it, then you need to get on board. Start thinking like this. It doesn't mean that you're going to go off and attack the federal government. No, it's just holding people accountable. Remember I said the thing about accountability? It not only applies to the community, it applies to those in authority.
That's right. That's right.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I think we're ready. I think we're ready. I think we've gotten to the point where they've gained my trust a little bit, so I'm ready to hear. Joe, let's start with you. Give us your 5-minute pitch. Why should we vote for you? Why should we donate to your campaign? Why should we support you?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Everybody here in Clark County and the 3rd Congressional District, we just got done with a very hard-fought primary race, and so I'm hoping tonight in the stands and out there in the audience, there's folks who did not vote for me, but who are conservatives and who are Republicans and want to hear from me. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the fact that Heidi St. John, right after Jamie Hura Butler dropped out, that she endorsed my race, because Heidi and every conservative in this district, we know that the Democrats are absolutely in lockstep. Everything that we've discussed here, the Democrats want to drastically change our country, and right now, quite frankly, they're doing it because they have control of every single branch of the government. They have control of the mainstream media, big tech, the list goes on. So this is our one chance right now. And the woman that I'm running against, Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, She's smart. She's trying to run like a moderate. She's trying to appeal to a lot of the people who probably voted for Jamie Herrera Butler, more of our traditional Republicans, independents, and then the handful of Democrats that we have here in the third. But there is nothing moderate about her or any other Democrat. A vote for Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez is basically just one more vote with Nancy Pelosi. And what they want to do is drastically change our country. If you look no further than what's happening right now, the way that they're putting all this economic pressure on us, that's because of their energy policies. They want to force this conversion to green energy. And that's not because they actually care about climate change. That's just something they tell people. They want major global corporations, the Chinese Communist Party, to have more control over our economy than we do. That's why they've killed off our own industries. If they actually cared about fixing the environmental issues, they would have us do a moderate and gradual conversion over to other alternative fuel sources. Instead, they come in day one and they kill it all off. They kill off American jobs. They make us weak on the world stage. And now every single green proposal that they put forward, it's a major payday for the Chinese Communist Party, whether it's electric vehicles, whether it's solar charging stations, all of that, completely and totally radical, and they don't care if they're going to burn the economy down to do it. They don't care if you're going to lose 1 month of income and you can't afford Christmas presents for your kids. They're going to keep the pedal on the metal until we get these people out of office. Crime, we've talked about crime ad nauseum up here tonight, and that starts with the invasion of our southern border, the fentanyl getting pumped in. Look, at a very basic level, the Democrats, whether it's Nancy Pelosi, whether it's Joe Biden, whether it's Monica Stonier and Sharon Wiley in Vancouver, they want anarcho-tyranny. They want our borders open. They want extreme regulations for all of us. They want to be able to lock the country back down with regulations and restrictions just like they did during 2020. 2020 was a prelude. Joe Biden the other day said that the pandemic's over, but have they lifted the emergency orders yet? Has that happened?
Nope.
Funny how they haven't let go of that control. They want those regulations for us, but at the same time, the border's open. At the same time, here in Clark County, we are going to have actual child murderers get released from jail because the Democrats in Olympia got rid of the 3 strikes and you're out regulations. And we're getting ready to let a man who murdered a 14-year-old out of jail because, you know, he committed some felonies in other states. So it doesn't really count in Washington. This is what they want. This is the Democrat agenda. Show me, and I challenge my opponent to show me the Democrat who stands in the face of this. Show me the Democrat who will dissent from this. There is not one of them. There's not one Democrat right now standing up to the groomer ideology. They all talk about this gender-affirming care, and they think that it should be the choice of the child, and whatever doctor is sick enough to mutilate them, that's what they want. And that is the main line of the Democrat Party right now. Same thing with abortion. My opponent attacks me all the time on abortion because I have this radical belief that life begins at conception. However, what I say to them is I say, look, there's no moderation with the Democrats. Right now, the Democrat abortion policy is so radical, you have to go to China or North Korea to find anything that comes close to killing a baby up to the point of birth. And that's where the majority of Democrats are right now. I challenge people to go back and look at what Obama was saying about abortion when he was a candidate in 2007 and 2008. He sounds like a moderate Republican at this point. The Democrats want to kill babies up until the time of their birth, and I just think that's completely and totally wrong. And I think the American people understand the difference in those opinions and why we need to preserve life, even people that are probably more on the pro-choice side. So that's what the Democrats stand for. That's what I'm going to fight. My agenda is real simple. We've got 2 years to kill off and to stop the Biden administration. That starts with impeachment, congressional oversight. Every committee will be an oversight committee, and we will be using the tools of the federal budget to choke and to starve the Leviathan that is the administrative state and to hold people accountable, starting with people like Anthony Fauci. COVID drastically changed this country. It killed small businesses. People literally died because Jay Inslee was shoving people back into old folks' homes. We have to hold these guys accountable. Anthony Fauci is one of the guys who was providing our taxpayer dollars to the Chinese Communist Party to run gain of function. We're going to hold them accountable. The list goes on of bureaucrats we're going to be able to hold accountable. So going forward, it's impeachment, obstruction, and oversight. Going into 2024, it is the iron triangle of America first, bringing back our manufacturing, energy independence, strong immigration, and no more endless wars. Thank you very much.
Whoa, way to go, Joe.
Make America great again.
And you know it's bad when Obama is starting to sound like Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, yeah.
Just saying. Just saying.
Or George Bush.
Right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Bars.
How about that, America?
All right, Ray.
Safety, safety, safety. That's what you should be concerned about now. Are you concerned about the safety of your family? Are you concerned about the safety of your community? Are you concerned about the safety of your jobs when you go out there and you have to? Are you concerned? Safety is not a concept just for, a Democrat concept. Safety isn't a concept for a Republican or independent. Safety is what affects our community. So the question you have to ask yourself, and I'm asking you, are you safe? Do you feel safe when you go home? Do you lock your doors now in some places in Washougal? You remember folks in Washougal? We never used to lock our doors. Why would you lock the door? You couldn't get inside. It makes no sense. But now we're locking our doors, aren't we? Now we're looking at these rings and all these seeing people come up to our doors. I saw a ring day before yesterday, where a criminal that we were chasing came up to the door of this house and knocked on the door. And his wife was there alone with their children. This criminal that I'm chasing through the streets, or police are chasing through the streets. What is that like? Safety, safety, safety. Are you concerned? How about the safety of your children at the schools? I told you about all the laws that are happening down there that take away your rights as an American citizen, as an American parent, to have any kind of say over your children. Are they safe now, knowing that a trusted adult can now take your child to an abortion clinic without you knowing it? Are you safe? Are you safe when you can go down to the waterfront and you're enjoying yourself and you all of a sudden some guy rides up in a car, two 14 and 13-year-olds jump out and then go and grab your purse and yank it from you and jump back in the car? Are you safe? Or have we seen a degradation of what values and morals are by way of our elected officials and those that are in authority and by these unelected bureaucrats? It's time for you to start thinking about safety and how you vote. Do we want to have the same status quo? Do we want to have the same things that have happened in the past where now our safety has been jeopardized? Or are we willing to say enough is enough is enough? I'm telling you this, as your sheriff, I will hold the Constitution up to the highest height that it's supposed to be, because it protects me and it protects you. It is critical that we start holding ourselves, that our people that are in authority over us, accountable. Yes, we need to hold the prosecuting attorney accountable. Yes, we need to hold the sheriff accountable. And yes, we need to hold city officials accountable. And yes, we need to hold school officials accountable. Thank you. But I'm coming to you as your sheriff candidate. And I'm saying it's time. It's not time just for a Republican or conservative time. It's time for, as a community, that we elect a sheriff that is going to actually carry out the duties of the Constitution, that will say enough is enough and put an end to this homeless issue. And we can do it. And we did do it. And we can do it again. We can work with them. We can handle our homeless issue. But it's not being done because we're utilizing failed policies of Seattle and failed policies of Portland. And now they are bleeding into our community. Is this what you want? No. Then we need to stand up and say no to this kind of behavior. That's what I need from you. And you need to say no to any candidate that decides that they're going to give you a bunch of pablum speech and tell you make it and blow smoke where it's not supposed to be blown. And you know that that is not what you want. You want the truth, the hardcore truth. I want to say a quick thing about what happened a couple days ago. Did you know, just last week we were told that they're now going to take the jail from the Clark County Sheriff. Did anybody know that? Raise your hand if you knew about this. Look at that. I think I see maybe 8 hands. As of right now, a law enforcement function that belongs to the sheriff and is part of his statutory authority has been taken away. And guess where it's been taken? It's now underneath an unelected bureaucrat who now has control of our jail. Oh, don't get me wrong. I understand. I went and visited the jail. If you had come with me when I visited the jail, you would have been horrified. Men sleeping in the jail, 8 men to a room. One man's bed was right next to the toilet. Overcrowding. Conditions where the equipment's not working. Using cardboard to block wind coming from underneath the sally port. This has been allowed to happen. Underneath the old administration, why was this allowed to happen? Why? Why was our jail allowed to become so deteriorated? So now that it is unsafe for the convict, and it's also unsafe for the corrections officer. Unacceptable. We need to do something about it. And although now that opportunity is passed on, we need to understand now that we need to stop this degradation of your police, this lowering of the standards, this defunding of your police, making them smaller and smaller and smaller. I come to you as your sheriff's candidate. And I don't just come here just to make me a great person. Oh, Ray Reynolds is now the sheriff. No. I come with a purpose. And the purpose is to bring back law and order in this area.
Yes.
And I'm not a fly-by-nighter. Most of you know I've been here for a long time. We've been helping the community for a long time. Our vets, our kids. Yes, I do read to children in their schools. I actually read Green Eggs and Ham to them. Anybody remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, I know that's probably not politically
is that
correct.
Is that still legal?
Oh, buddy, that's it. we read to the schools. We go and we help out. We're not veterans that have given the all. We go to their funerals. I've done this. I'm not a fly-by-nighter. I love this community. And I've been here forever, and I want to stay. I'm here to help you, but I can't do it alone. I need you to go out. I need you to tell everybody. Tell 10 people, 10 more. We need to vote Ray Reynolds in as our sheriff, and we need to have him there now. And I want to thank you for that vote.
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
I want to just piggyback on. Oh, you're doing the organ already. You're going to ask for the offerings?
It's offering
It's offering time.
time.
It is offering time. On the jail thing, I mean, just how practical this got in Moscow for us. Some of you may know that in 2020, so we have Moscow, Idaho is like a little blue dot in a relatively red state. And our city council thinks that Seattle and Portland are like ideal cities. Okay, it's a much smaller piece, but that's basically what they're doing. And they had draconian orders, mask mandates, and all the rest of it, social distancing. And in about this time, September, what day was it? 23rd, actually, so yesterday, 2 years ago, our church determined to have a peaceful psalm sing protest at our city hall.
No Molotov cocktails. No. Just psalms and hymns.
Our pastor said we're going to meet there at 5 o'clock as you get off work. We're going to sing 3 hymns and the doxology, and we're going to go home. That was all it was going to be, and it was just going to be a peaceful protest. We believe, because they weren't listening to us. We'd gone to city council meetings, and they didn't care. Well, we weren't social distancing. We weren't wearing masks. Gabe and 2 other members of our congregation were arrested. They were put in jail by the Moscow PD, and it was our local sheriff heard about it and said, "Get them out of my jail. I will not have these law-abiding citizens in my jail." Okay, Gabe got to spend 3 glorious hours there.
We'll never forget about it.
It was brutal.
But I just want to point that out. Like, that's a real practical thing. Like, when he's talking about jails being taken away from the sheriff, who is an elected official, who has accountability to the citizenry, versus an unelected bureaucrat who has no accountability to you, that matters. And the more that we have this conflict with the left, the more that we need to speak up. I mean, we were singing psalms. Like, that was, not burning down police departments, not throwing Molotov cocktails, not, breaking and smashing and, taking stuff like they do in some cities, I hear. And that's what we were arrested. We were arrested for that. And our sheriff was the one who stood up for us, at least in that instance, and made sure that members of our congregation were released. So I just want to underline that point. That matters. It really matters a lot. And someone who sees that as a problem and sees that as something that a high priority that he needs to get back into his hand so that his people are protected, that's huge. It really is. And you should definitely check out the tables for both of these gentlemen. They're going to be hanging out for a little bit, so please feel free to meet them, ask them questions. I know I didn't get through all the questions, so hey, find them, corner them, ask them your hardest question.
Campaigns are expensive.
Yeah,
donate.
Please
donate as you're able. Yeah. And we'd like to thank Clark County Christians for Civic Renewal, who sponsored this organization. Make sure you find the QR code. Sign up to their email list. More events like this are coming.
Yeah. Let's give these guys a hand one more time. I appreciate these guys. Thank you for coming. All right. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. If you have kids, go baptize them. Until the next time we're invited, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic. Thank you, guys.